From the southern tip of the Kenai Peninsula, the place where Jewel got her shine, Tom Bodette got his story straight, the headwaters of the Kachemak Bay. Here's your host for Great Adventures in Real Estate, Chris Story.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Alaska Real Estate Podcast. The greatest show on earth starts right now. On today's program, Dave Summers here with a legislative update. Dave will summarize two very important pieces of legislation recently passed. Also, Ken L. Scott here with your Alaska USA Mortgage Brief. Amy Smythe Harris shares her experience here in Alaska. And we have a special treat. Nationally recognized aerial photographer Scott Dickerson here with 3 tips for realtors on photographing for maximum results. Stick around. Miss a minute, you could miss a million. A big thanks to Alaska USA Title Agency for sponsoring our legislative update. Working with a company you know, like, and trust is so important in our industry. Alaska USA Title Agency appreciates your trust and works hard to earn it. Find out for yourself why so many people are turning to Alaska USA Title Agency. Online at alaskausatitle.com. Welcome, please, the man himself. That's right, Dave Summers, real estate broker, real estate commissioner, and the chair of the Alaska Association of Realtors Real Estate Legislative Committee. Dave, what happened this session in Juneau?
Well, we only had 2 bills on our legislative agenda this year, and we were successful with both of those bills. The first actually started last year. That was HB 130. It's what we call a sprinkler bill. A few years ago, the International Residential Code was updated. In that, they mandate that single-family and duplex have to have residential sprinkler systems. Well, they're actually full-blown sprinkler systems. Some parts of the country that might work well. Concern was in Alaska, with our extreme temperatures, that the additional systems in the house would not be maintained properly. They'd be an additional source for freeze damage, which then results in a additional moisture damage in the house, which then can result in mold. That was just one of the issues. The additional cost going in and the possibility that would preclude people from getting into new construction was also a concern. The Alaska Association of Realtors felt that them putting new construction money into proven systems that work well and that are cost-effective, such as hardwired smoke alarms, made a lot more sense. Now, we didn't want to go and tell the municipalities what they could and couldn't do. And the concern is, because this is already in the code, once the local municipalities adopted that for their local codes, it would automatically put in that mandate, so you could not construct without having these systems in. So our bill, or the HB 130, which is our bill and the Builders Association's bill, asks that the local municipalities, if they're going to adopt the new code, before they adopt that portion of it that mandates sprinkler systems in duplex and single family, if they go out and hold a series of public meetings, publish these meetings, and hold the meetings, do cost-benefit analysis, and make sure the local folks know what they're getting into before they adopt this. That bill, we actually had it through both houses last year. There was a little political infighting that was very disappointing to see that held it up. But we had it reintroduced this year. It went through both houses very smoothly, no opposition, and it did pass.
Absolutely. How about the usury law, the amendment to the usury law that was already on the books, but it's now been amended?
Yeah, there's always been a usury law, and you know, this issue has been out there for a couple of years, and we tend to forget about it in some portions of the state. And one of the reasons is the portion of the law that affects this indicate, you know, it has to do with notes that are $25,000 or less. Well, there's not many pieces of land, for example, in Anchorage and developed areas where you can get land at that price anymore. But there's a lot of areas around the state where you can, and there's still subdivision lots out there, outside the Fairbanks area, North Pole area, and in the Kenai Peninsula, other areas where you can certainly find lots at that price. And there's small recreational cabins out in the middle of nowhere that are in that price range that people like to sell on time, because there's no good bank financing for these properties, and some cases none at all. In the interior, the title companies are closing the transactions even if the note rate exceeds the usury law, and that's why we tended to forget about it up here. There's other areas around the state, particularly down around the Homer area, where the title companies won't close the transactions if they're exceeding the rate. The problem is the law was last visited back in 1981 when we had rates that were at about 14%, Fed Reserve rates that we were keying off of. The law says that for notes $25,000 or less, you can't exceed 5 percentage points above the rate charged to banks by the 12th Federal Reserve District. And back then, that was about 19% interest rates at that point in time. I don't think anybody ever envisioned back then that we'd have a Federal Reserve rate at 0.75%. So at that rate, if you were issuing or selling a piece of land or a little cabin right now and the buyer wanted you to carry paper, if you exceeded 5.75%, you're in violation of the usury law. Now, the problem there was twofold is in many cases, if the people are aware of what's going on, they don't want to put a note out there that low. A lot of people just don't want to carry paper below. And I think the averages that I've been seeing are somewhere between 6.5% to 8%. And the buyers want to join in the home ownership or the land ownership deal, and they're being precluded from it because the sellers, if they're aware of the law, will not issue those notes at a rate lower than that. They just don't want to get tied up into a long-term note that low. The second problem is in areas where they will close them, those transactions, people just don't know about the law. It's putting the people participating in that transaction at great risk. So we merely introduced legislation modifying that law that said either 10% or 5% above, whichever is greatest. What that allows you then, today's rate, again, it was 5.75 was the maximum. After this bill gets signed into law, and I believe it's already been signed, if not today, then any day now, then you can go up to 10%, and you can negotiate your notes, and buyer and seller can just have more of a free market system in that range. So that's going to help a lot of people out, and I think we got it through just in time to support the land sale rush that we usually have around springtime in Alaska.
After today's podcast, click on Point of View and read what Deborah Lysick, owner and broker of Bay Realty, had to say about the usury law. This edition of Alaska Real Estate brought to you in part by Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, your Alaskan-owned finance company ensuring Alaskans safe and affordable housing, superb mortgage programs, rental assistance, and energy efficiency. From anywhere in Alaska, call 1-800-478-AHFC. I hope you had a chance to see Amy Smythe Harris live on a recent trip to Alaska. She taught all over the state. Here's what Chris Drewsdale had to say with Freedom Realty in Soldotna.
It was a cram of information in 3 hours. It was a gob of information. And I'll tell you, with 20 realtors in there, a lot of people's heads were about ready to explode with the amount of information.
So, Amy, we wanted to follow up. What was your experience here in Alaska? Did it compare to what you expected? And will you come back?
Will I come back? Yes, please. I would love to answer that question. Yes, I've had people kind of scare me off a little bit with going, oh, my gosh, it's going to be wilderness. And I wasn't sure what to expect, but it's just like nothing. It's the same like what we have here. And it was just, the agents were fabulous. Everybody was really great, very on their game with their business. So I was very, very impressed and really enjoyed my time there. Ready to come back in a drop of a hat, and loved it.
A big thanks to Sandy Ehrenman and the Alaska Association of Realtors for bringing Amy Smythe Harris to Alaska. Time now for our Alaska USA Mortgage Brief.
This is Ken Scott with Alaska USA Mortgage. Contrary to what probably a lot of us are hearing in the mortgage business, all the doom and gloom, there's still really a lot of good programs out there to help people obtain that dream of home ownership. We have some programs with zero down, some programs with low down payment requirement. RD loans require zero down. Of course, VA is zero down. RD loans, we can still go down as low as a 620 credit score. The VA loan, we can still also go down as low as a 620 credit score. Also, the HUD home financing we can do with $100 down.
Thanks, Ken. For all things mortgage, visit AlaskaUSAMortgage.com. I asked Scott Dickerson for a few realtor tips on shooting a house. Scott's photography has been featured in places far and wide, from Alaska Magazine to the cover of Patagonia.
Get out of your car, because the point of that is you got to try. That's kind of at the heart of everything. Is you can't expect to take good photos unless you actually make a conscious effort, and that's what you see. Obviously, is people taking pictures out of their car from they don't even bother to drive in the driveway kind of thing. It's like you can't shortcut effort basically for a good photo. Shoot in morning or evening light. If it's cloudy, it doesn't matter much, but the ideal shot is going to come from a sunny morning or sunny evening, and think about which way the house faces. Like some houses look good in morning light, and some of them look bad in morning light. So think about everybody kind of has some sense of an idea where the sun comes up and sets. And basically, you want light on the front of the house. You want the sun will feature the parts of the house that you want to feature if you work with it. So you want that sun to be hitting the side of the house that you think looks the best. This is a general tip. Shoot the house at not straight on, not straight from the side. Think about 45-degree angles, three-dimensional at an angle. Your mind can look at it in reality, and you totally see that three-dimensionality, but when it's printed in 2 dimensions, you need all the help you can get. But I'd say 90% of the time, houses look better if you shoot them from an elevated perspective. This is where my tree climbing expertise has come into play for the realtors. But there's other ways to do it. Stand in the back of your pickup. Some houses look fine from down low, but almost always, as high as you can get the higher you can get is better. Rarely have I ever thought, oh, I wish I could get down lower to get a shot of this house.
Thanks, Scott. Hey, have you ever taken a picture from your car? Okay, once or twice, but it was raining. Come on. Hey, before we go, let me remind you, Matthew Ferry's version of The Perfect Game is still posted under the Motivation tab at the top of the screen. You won't regret the few minutes, really, that it takes to listen to this. Truly a magnificent way to live. Until next time, for all of us at Alaska Real Estate, I'm Chris Story, wishing you health, wealth, and happiness.
Crazy party. Never seen so many people laughing, dancing. Look at you, you're having fun. But look at me, I'm almost crying. But that don't keep her love from dying. Misery calls for me, the party's over. Turn out the lights, the party's over.